Welcome to FCC's Advent Countdown, Day 16. Make sure you're going back and looking at the previous week so you know what's going on here. We're about to jump into an Old Testament prophecy about the coming of Jesus. Let's see what we got for today. We've got a driver's license of a strikingly handsome young man, and we've got Genesis 17:19. The Lord speaking to Abraham tells him, "Your wife Sarah will give birth to a son, and you will call him Isaac, and he will be a blessing of my covenant to all your descendants." You know, when I look at my driver's license, it makes me think of the DMV. And when I think of the DMV, much like all of us, I think of waiting. Waiting's actually a big theme of Advent, right? Well, you may remember that Abraham and Sarah waited a long time to have a son, and they waited a long time for God to fulfill his promise. He had told Abraham, your descendants will be as many as the stars of the sky. And he had told him, you're going to have a son, even though you're very, very old and your wife is very, very old and barren. You may also remember that Abraham and Sarah got a little impatient and arranged for a third person to come involved and for her to bear a son to Abraham. They tried to sort of kickstart God's promise. Didn't end well, hasn't ended well. It's caused a lot of strife in our planet to this day between the descendants of those two children. But I'll tell you what I think's really awesome. Did you know that Isaac, that's what God said to name their son that was the rightful son, God said, name him Isaac, and the Hebrew literal translation for Isaac is he laughs. I like to think that it's God's sense of humor saying, you're going to try to jump ahead of me and do a better thing than I plan to do. Don't make me laugh. Now, it also could be translated more like a rejoicing laugh, and that's probably more what God had in mind. But I like to think it was just God being funny, as though he would look at us and go, really? You think you've got a better plan than I do? If you're waiting this Advent season for something, if you're waiting on a relationship to break in a certain direction and to go a better way, if you're waiting on a physical healing or spiritual or emotional thing, if you're waiting on some prayer that you've been asking God to answer for a long time, or if you're waiting on a promise that God has given you, don't give up. Don't despair. Take heart in knowing that God always fulfills his promises, even when the circumstances around us look like it's impossible. That's where God loves to do his coolest stuff. And then secondly, my friends, whatever you do, don't try to kickstart God's promises in your life. Don't try to run ahead of what God has. It will not work out well for you. So let's wait in a holy and good way, knowing that God's going to provide in the exact right time that which he has promised. Merry Christmas.